There's one in Vegas, it's really big.
All right. Are we ready to kick things off, get into it? Hopefully everyone had enough lunch, but if not, there's still plenty of it. Thank you all for coming. My name is Trey McCoy. I am the Membership and Facilities Manager here at the EC. Just want to say we really appreciate you all coming out. I know it's a holiday season. People want to call it early. So your commitment is greatly appreciated. And then also we have a smaller group, so more opportunity for engagement, interactions with Bill, our speaker today. How many of you all have not been to the EC before? Just one. That's great. Would love to give you a tour after today. How many of y'all are a member currently of the EC? All right, so there are a couple that are not. So really quick, what we want to do here at the EC is make Nashville the best place to start and grow your business by increasing your likelihood of success. So we want to do that by providing the necessary resources. So we have two different avenues. We have membership connecting with advisors, so all sorts of different industry experts, subject matter experts. We actually have a couple of advisors in the room today. Bill Ganon is one of them, and then also Amy. Am I missing anyone else that's an advisor here?
We got a new
Steve.
advisor.
Okay. Give it up. Awesome. Give it up for our advisors. I'll make y'all do it again if it didn't work, if it wasn't loud enough. But yes, we're very thankful for you all because we can't really do what we do without advisors like yourself giving back to the community. There's also other resources like co-working space, meeting room space, and then startup discounts. Am I missing? Oh, startup curriculum. There's plenty of that. So we have a pre-flight digital course for those in the idea stage. Plenty of opportunities to grow your business. We also have our accelerator programs. So you're gonna see these three over here. Great thing about it is applications for these accelerator programs are actually open until December 22nd. So if you're looking to accelerate the growth of your business, we have one for you. So we have those that are business stage based and then industry based. Takeoff for those ready to launch their business, in flight for the growing and scaling stage, and then project healthcare for the industry specific of healthcare, of course. If you want to learn more about any of these ways to get connected and access these resources, please come talk to me. But, oh, I didn't even know this messed up behind me.
I didn't know how to fix it. All
right, there we go. Well, let's get into today. Before I pass over to Bill, I want to say a couple of different thank yous. So thank you to our community partners. We have CompStasis for secure, reliable IT, and then Metro Nashville. And then our growth partners. So they are heavily involved with everything that we do here at the EC. We have Pinnacle for banking, CLA for accounting, RJ Young for tech, Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce for community. That's always a tongue twister for me. And then Baker Donaldson for legal. We also have our supporting partners. Now, I'm not gonna read every one of them off, but very thankful for them as well. Launch Tennessee. I think almost everyone is familiar with Launch Tennessee at this point if you've come to an event before, but if you're not, you can always scan this QR code. They specialize in capital, commercialization, and connections. And then lastly, InvestTN. If you're looking for investments, capital, this may be a really good fit for you. This is an equity-based investment that is powered by LaunchTN. So if you want to scan that, learn more about it, please do. And without further ado, I want to give it over to Bill. He's a longtime expert, a speaking coach. Please give it up for Bill.
Just good. First thing I'm going to do is apologize for my less than ideal stage voice right now. The water is not going to be far away. So I may break into a little spontaneous cough now and then. Nothing to worry about. Slide. So, presentations. Bill, we don't do a lot of stuff with slides all the time. That's just one presentation. What about one-to-one across the desk for a critical fundraise? That's a presentation. Talking to a key customer about a critical problem. That's a presentation. These are all different versions of presentations. We're going to touch on any number of those today. So you're going to, some of you I know are entrepreneurs that I've worked with, actually some of you directly. Others may be business owners. Either way, I think you're going to find opportunities to take this template I'm going to suggest to you today and build it into your presentations. Somebody said, I come in, if you don't mind, Chris, I don't even have an agenda when I give a presentation oftentimes, on the fly. And I don't say that's against the law, but it's amazing what happens when you do have a template. You can go in and mentally you're tracking yourself and you know how you're going through it. So here's my 2 big principles I launch with. Number 1, technology may have made us more efficient communicators, but it hasn't made us more effective ones. So this whole notion of throwing out, Slack messages and DMs and all on social, I get it, it's important and we have to do it. But if we don't find a way to keep our humanity wrapped around our technology so that we present truly person to person, connecting with people, I think we run the risk of really compromising our effectiveness. So hopefully today's presentation will address some of that. Number 2, when all else is equal, pretty much equal, the better communicators win. When everything else is pretty equal, knowledge-wise, experience-wise, the better communicators win. So no matter where you are in your business, that principle alone should give you a little bit of momentum and a little bit of motivation to say, yeah, I can work on my pitch. I can work on my delivery of what it is I do. What about your brief elevator pitch? All of this is sprinkled throughout. Before I get started, any questions on this? Oh, everybody, should I take the slides? Take pictures if you'd like. I am going to leave you with a 1-sheet leave behind. Trey has them and he will distribute. I was just saying about the leave behinds, Trey. Trey has it and he will distribute to everybody here and he'll give you a recap of what we talked about. Let's get started. Who wants to get on my jet? I know I do. Wouldn't it be great? But we can dream. Not quite yet, but we're getting there. Again, when everything else is equal, better communicators win. And in the public speaking aspect of presentations, when you have to get up in front of a lot of people, you all know the old joke. It's something we fear worse than death oftentimes, and therefore that means that at a funeral, we'd rather be the person in the casket than behind the microphone. An outline helps. If you just have a game plan for your presentation, it's such a big help. You're not making things up as you go along. You're anticipating questions. You get a more control of the situation. So we're going to take this flight together. That jet in the beginning was my metaphor for how we're going to make our presentation soar. And with any flight, there are some basic components. You've got to have a flight plan for any flight. Any plane that takes off, it's got a flight plan. Got to have a good opening to get that energy up. Then you have to deliver that core content in flight, and then you have to bring your audience in for a landing. Like where did I take them? How you handle questions oftentimes, either in a conversation across the desk with a key customer, or I dare say address people at a conference when they have that open mic in the room. How you address questions can make the biggest difference of your presentation. And then I have a big secret for you all at the end. So let's go. As I said, can't have a flight without a flight plan, folks. You got to do it. Any pilot will tell you they have to register all kinds of information, weather conditions, traffic patterns. There's a ton of stuff. Your presentation really isn't any different. There's a lot of questions you should be asking yourself before a critical presentation. Here's a couple of them, right? What's the logistics in the room? And I'm going to go from big presentations to small ones, so just roll with the whole gamut here. But in a bigger room, what will my logistics be? Will I have a microphone? Will I need a microphone? How big is the room? How many people will be there? How experienced or smart are they about what I do? Right? This is all the stuff that goes into your preparation. Everybody knows Simon Sinek, or if you don't, you should. It's the classic Why, the book about why. Why am I giving this presentation? Could be to raise funds. Could be to talk to a new customer. It could be talking to your board. Why am I giving this? What is the goal I have of this presentation? What do they have to know? Well, gee, Bill, they have to know everything. You'd be surprised, as much as you want to say everything, they're not ready to hear and remember everything. So instead, think about what they have to know. There's a couple of things in there, if you dig enough, you'll address. And when I'm done, why will they want to know more? Did I leave them with a little bit of a, let's find out more about that? Did I crescendo for you musicians? Did I build something at the end that makes them go, I need to know more about that? If it's a big presentation like this, are you going to use slides? If you are, why? Why is a great question about slides, right? Do I really need slides, or can I handle this simply across the desk, maybe with a couple of leave behinds? And naturally, will there be Q&A during my presentation? And if so, we're going to address all of that. The last thing you want to do is start having to field questions that you weren't expecting and didn't know you'd have a Q&A session for. So this is that flight plan. This is the kind of work that rarely gets done before a presentation. You know you have a big call, you're going to go in, I need to knock this dead, they need to know everything, am I ready to go? Take it easy. Go through these questions, figure out the core answers that are all in here, and it's going to give you so much better of a solid base to get started from. There's your flight plan. I know you've all been on a plane at some point, on a jet, and you know how the most dynamic point in that flight is when that jet gets up to speed and somehow this impossibly heavy metal tube with all these people on it somehow finds a way to take off at the end of the runway. You don't know how they do it, but it does it every time. That's where all that energy is, and you feel yourself pressed against the seat, right? And a little bit of shuddering going on. Nonetheless, it's where all the energy is. And guess what? When you open a presentation, you want the energy up there too. Big secret. They remember what you open with, and they remember what you close with. So we have to think about how we get off the ground. So you get up on stage, and what's the first thing you say? Not you, but the royal you. Tell me if you've heard these openings before. Thank you, Bill Ganon, and I'll be talking about presentation skills today. And yeah, it's important stuff. And you know, how's everybody doing? Are we good? We all good today? Right? Hey, listen, we're going to talk about stuff today, and I know it can be really complicated, but I hope you'll bear. Okay. What this is your brain thinking that you're going to relate to the audience with a little bit of, I'm just vulnerable, so let me talk to you. And here's what they hear. Insecurity, you're not sure what you really want to say, and you're already chipping away at your credibility just by saying these kind of things. Don't punish yourself. It's just your nerves, and they found their way out of your mouth, okay? Every speaker has nerves. I just want to point that out. No matter who you look at, they all have nerves when they get up there. Here's the difference. Nerves with a negative expectation of what's going to happen is called fear. And nerves with a positive, excited anticipation of what's going to happen is called excitement. And all you have to do is survey people waiting on a roller coaster ride, and you'll see what I mean. From excitement, I can't wait, to, oh my God, I told my kids I would do this, and I'm so sorry I said yes, okay? Nerves with a negative, fear. Nerves with a positive, excitement. That's what we want. This doesn't create that. This creates uncertainty. It creates, you think you're relating to the audience. How's everybody doing today? Are we good? And woo, you know, just get up there and start opening with a story. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Ganon. I remember flying through the air and thinking to myself, boy, this would have been a good day to wear my bicycle helmet. I remember the last second I saw was the street, and then everything went black. I'll tell you the rest of the story at the end of our presentation. That's an example of a two-part story. You open, get your attention, and I'm going to tell you something later on. Keeps the audience interested. Or applause dies down, you step up and you say, Martin Luther King said, when you cease to dream, you cease to live. Quotes are a marvelous way to open a presentation. All you have to do is go to quotes.com, you're going to find millions of them. Sort them, filter them by category, filter them by your area. Any one of them could be a great way just to set the stage and begin. The word imagine is a wonderful way to start a presentation too, especially for nonprofits. I was thinking about this. Imagine a world with a limitless supply of fresh water. What you're doing is inviting the audience into your vision. Isabella, I was thinking, imagine a world where we don't have kids falling and injuring themselves out of shopping carts, which happens all the time. Right? What if we could keep those kids safe? Imagine with me, right? And finally, statistics. Nothing wrong with statistics. I think they get a little bit overplayed in the beginning. You know, applause died down. 93% of the work, fine. Those probably are still good, but I wonder if you can't maybe even go better. Nonetheless, they're certainly better than the left-hand side. So, see, take a minute, look at these two sides, and see what I mean about the brain. Look at what the audience brain is doing here. Oh, that's nice, you know. And over here, they're like, all right, let's go. This sounds like it's going to be good. How you open is so important. Remember, I told you that plane is taking off. Let's get them energized right out of the box. After you've opened with that quick story, the imagine, whatever, now we have to not talk about you, but we have to talk about the problem you're solving, because no one cares about what you do yet until they know what you're fixing. So we want to talk about the challenge, we want to talk about the opportunity, we want to talk about the problem in such a way that one thing only happens, that you make the audience care about the problem. So don't just give it lip service and roll over it and can't wait to get into your solution. Talk about the problem as something that really is standing in the way. Great example, was it Chris? Clark, I'm so sorry. And you had said 20% of the time is spent in front of customers, right? And that's, you know, but 30% are what the top producers do. How do we get to that 30? Do you know what this 10% difference is costing you? Financial leaders and partners. Get me to care about the problem. Once I care about it, now I'm interested in you and everybody who's trying to tackle it. But get me in, okay? Get me to care. Okay, you got your problem, it's on the table, people get it. Now it's time for you to deliver your core content. And I know the amount of time you have is different. It can be 3 minutes for Entrepreneur Day, as it was last week. It can be 15 minutes, it can be a half an hour. You don't know necessarily, but on some presentations you do. One of the big dangers of most presentations is, I finally secured this critical call, right, Dylan? And I know I get about a half hour with them. I'm gonna pack so much into this. They are going to be so flooded with the stuff that I do in a half hour. I am not letting this opportunity go away. And so, just like a flight that's overcrowded, so will your presentation be. After the next thing, after the next thing, and then we do this, and then what we do is take all that and do this. It's such a classic sales presenter problem. You're telling them a lot, they're not hearing any of it. They're still mentally on number one. But you don't think you have enough time, and so you're just gonna push through. And it's the same thing, like when you're in a crowded flight. Does anything good happen on a crowded flight? No. They can't get the beverage service and the other thing going. The seats are all back, everybody's shoulder to shoulder. It's a bad situation. And to think about the metaphor for your presentation. By packing so much stuff in, you think you're giving them a lot. The reality is people can only hold so many bowling balls. You can't keep handing them. They're just gonna, okay? So we have to find a way to thin this out. You have to find a way. Remember I said, what must they know? This is where what they must know lives in your core content. I know I have 10 things to tell them. I could. But literally, they have to know these two things. What are these two things they just have to know? Now you can dress things around it. I often share this story. I was working with a young man in an organization down in New Orleans. He had to give a 2-minute speech at this big dinner. The dinner is called Son of a Saint, and it's founded by Sonny Lee. Sonny lost his dad, who actually played for the New Orleans Saints back in the early 70s. And he remembers the other Saint players kind of gathered around him and ended up raising him in a lot of ways, right? Were real mentors to him. And he said, you know what? Your dad doesn't have to be a New Orleans Saint to have this problem. This happens all over the place. What if I could talk to the New Orleans Saints and build an organization around, hey, there are other kids losing their dads or don't have dads, and it would be great if they had mentor figures. Oh, great. And each year this program's gotten bigger. It's reached the point where ESPN knows about them and everything else. It's really successful. Anyway, their annual fundraiser, no big surprise, big dinner fundraiser, but they get some of the young youth to stand up and speak. And this is gonna be the keynote kid. He's gonna do the 3 minutes that happen right before the video, which takes about 3 minutes. And right after the video comes the, get out your checkbook, hit up Venmo, let's make the money, okay? So that little talk is important, and it's gonna be about 3 minutes long. He says, the boy's name is Quentin. You're gonna love him, Bill. I met him, 14, unbelievably powerful, eye contact, firm handshake. It was great, right? And then I'm like, so Quentin, what do you want to talk about? And he was, boom, out of the gates. Oh, Mr. Ganon, I think it's a great organization and it's going to be fan. I remember when I was a kid and we had this, and then my other friend, Lionel, he's been there too, but his mom, but I think they'll really want to know this, and he's going on and he's so enthusiastic, and I realize this poor kid is going to ramble up there if he's not reined in, right? And I said, awesome, great stories, he's going on, he's smiling. I said, do me a favor, Quentin, just sit down for a second. I sit down and cry. I said, I want you to forget all about the pitch, just the whole speech for a minute. I said, Quentin, I'm an old white dude from New York who's down here in New Orleans. I don't know anything about Son of a Saint. I don't even know why it's important. Why is it a big deal? His eyes softened notably. It was like, I remember it like yesterday. His posture all of a sudden softened. He changed, and he said, Mr. Ganon, he said, Son of a Saint takes you from a really dark place and where you were in light to a place of real light. I said, okay, we got our line. Now we just have to build the presentation to it. That's what I mean about when you find that core deliverable, everything else just goes into the speech to deliver that. You don't pack it with a lot of stuff. And he did do that, and he delivered the line, and they clapped, and it was awesome. And I'm looking at him, and I'm doing one of these. It was awesome. The trick is to make it stick, right? Whatever you have to tell them, the trick is to make it stick with them so they can walk out and go, I do remember that really important thing. And the way you do this, going back to English and sophomore year in high school, is we use a couple of good old-fashioned grammar techniques. Similes are a good one. Anybody know where Buc-ee's is? Does anyone But, okay, so they're my Buc-ee's people. Somebody asked me, I went to a Buc-ee's, I came back, I was gobsmacked. I'm like, you cannot believe it. They go, oh, I said, well, it's like a big store. I said, no. It's like if Disney and Walmart and Trader Joe's had a baby. That's what Buc-ee's is. And people were laughing. But it makes the point so much clearer than saying it's this really big store with a lot of merchandise and they have these gas pumps outside. But when they can use terminology that people know, your message has a much better way of sticking. So think about, how can I develop a simile maybe for what I do that makes it so easy to remember, or an analogy? I listened to a woman once describe these women's health services she has in a directory, and she was explaining it. And I said, yeah, it sounds to me like it's kind of Expedia for women's health service. She goes, that's exactly what it is. Simplicity sometimes just pierces the noise. Like we're using an airline analogy today to talk about presentations. You might want to think about metaphors that your customer, your audience could hang on to make it understanding, make them understand it easier. And finally, everybody loves a good acronym. So if you do have some characteristics or some product features that actually say a word, you may want to think about inventing, bringing that together, making it super easy for them to remember. Once again, the trick is to make it stick. It doesn't matter if it's right, it matters if it's memorable. Right? So don't sacrifice the creativity of making it memorable and sticky for the sake of, I want to make sure I'm accurate even though no one will remember. Don't overload it with data. Don't dump truck in, okay? They can't absorb it. You think you're being super thorough, they don't get it. Core content, like I said. Now, for some of you, the landing could be a result of a pitch that's for maybe raising funds. For some of you, the landing could be a result of meeting a new customer for the first time and you want to schedule a second meeting. So for some of you, it might be meeting with a conference or talking to a conference and making sure they understand what these final points are. Whatever the case, I use this little acronym up here, CUES, to think about it. Especially for entrepreneurs, this is a good one. Here come the CUES. The C is for competitive. Can you explain who your competition is? Bill, you're not supposed to talk about your competition in a presentation. Baloney. You can at least talk about where you're positioned versus the, you don't have to ramble on about them, but you can certainly explain. And this is one solution, and it's not by any means the only one, but you have to grid somehow or visually or otherwise get your customer or your audience to understand where you are. And so I like these, like maybe it's a recurring revenue versus a one-time fee versus complex and easy to use. Maybe that's good. Or maybe fast and slow and high cost and low cost is yours. Whatever they are, think about where your access points are, but it really helps to be able to explain where the other guys are as opposed to where you are. Okay? To your point, Clark, right? Where one-stop solution takes 7 integrated programs, put them into one. Maybe speed is what that's all about. Who knows? You'll think about that. But at least having a handle on your competition, and I know you don't have to talk about this in every presentation, but for those of you that do, competition is pretty, you have to be at least aware. You have to at least show your audience, you know where your customers, where your competition is. The U of the Q's is for understanding, right? That you have a firm understanding of this category. That you really have the smarts to deliver it. You have the experience, you have the background, you've got the current staff. It's a good time to now start bragging on why we can do it. Because you see, now they're ready to understand who you are. Because They've understood the problem, you got them interested, then they understood the problem, then you talked about at least the things or two that they really had to know, and now you can tell them why your team is built to do this. This is a time for credibility. The S of Q's is this sustainability, especially for entrepreneurs, especially in light of the NEC. You're taking a small idea, but you want to explain that it's big. And one of the challenges I see when I hear entrepreneurs get up on stage is they paint this picture of a tree that they'd like to grow. Okay, and this may happen. This tree may grow. But this isn't exactly a compelling case for listening to why I should spend money with you. Are you telling the story of about a big oak, right? Are you being as big as you can be about your vision, about what the road ahead looks like, about how strategic spending and investment now could lead to something way better? Are we telling the tale of the mighty oak or the little sapling, right? Sustainability. This program can take off. This program is built for the long haul. That's what investors like to hear. For those of you that are talking about investing, I'm sorry, like I said, in the presentation, we kind of are showing you different executions. You're not always talking about raising funds, but if you are, always think big. So as we bring them in for the landing, right, we have to ask ourselves, did we take them from point A to point B? Just like a plane. Okay, our destination is Detroit, our destination is Nashville. Did we get them there? Do we believe we took the plane up, took them on a journey, and put them down there? Did we articulate the benefit? In closing, right? These are the things that we think are really going to move your business. Did you leave them wanting more? Like, I can't wait to learn more about this. Are you getting the desired outcome or action? Don't forget, in a sales, if you want action at the end of your presentation, you best darn ask for it. Let me take you back to Old English. Remember the difference between convince and persuade? Convince, I agree with you, I'm nodding my head. Should we do everything we do? Should we do everything possible to curb domestic violence in our, everyone, yep. Would you be willing to sign a brochure? Would you be willing to sign a referendum to support this? Well, that's action. That's a persuasive act. So when you're asking for action, make sure you ask for it. I coach this to salespeople all the time. You'd be surprised how many of them say, gee, Bill, they know why I'm there. I don't really have to ask them for the order. Like, yeah, I think you do. It's very important. You're nodding your head along, Sid. You understand that. You have to ask for it. Just like we talked about on those first words that you say to open the presentation, we need to rehearse the words you close with. And so often, we get to the end of the presentation and we hear this stuff. I know, see, some of you, you're laughing, you're smiling, you're laughing, you've seen these do it. Okay, I guess that pretty much wraps up my talk. I see I'm out of time. Thank you for listening. I hope you buy what we talked about. I was really glad to be here. Clearly you're not. You're not sure, right? All that, thank you. So any questions? And of course your face is saying, please don't ask any questions. Right? All this stuff is what your brain just leaks out. It can't help it. It just wants to. And I encourage you all to put a big red X through this whole side and think about this. So my ask is of this room, the $25,000 first prize is going to go directly into the development of our solution. May I get your order today? Boom. Remember that quote in the beginning? As I said in the beginning of our presentation, if you cease to dream, you cease to live. We call that bookending. You put a bookend on each end of the presentation and the person goes, that's right, you did say that in the beginning of the presentation. Remember the story? So there it was flanked. So I wanted to finish the story. So I wake up in the emergency room, right? Doctor said I was 3 millimeters away from serious spine damage and somehow I was spared. And on and on. And I've heard some of you tell stories in front of the group before, some very moving stories about your life. You know, stories just work. Make sure the timing is right. Make sure you don't try to tell a 5-minute story and you have 6 minutes on stage. And this is kind of handy, and keep this one in your back pocket. If you remember nothing else from today's presentation, remember this. Now, what I'm going to say next is pretty important, right? So make sure you have something important to say. But it's a great attention grabber. It's a great recollector of the audience at one time, right? So ladies and gentlemen, I know we've talked a lot about today, but if you remember nothing else from today's presentation, do remember this. When everything else is equal, the better communicators win. If you walk away from my presentation knowing nothing more than that, that's a good thing. Okay. As I said, no matter how much time you have, if you have 10 minutes, 3, 3, and 3. Problem, now you can bring in your story, and then we talk about cues, right? That's the bit, and that's how we get the interest level high. Very quickly on slides, please don't ever show these, okay? And they happen all the time. And what is the first thing people say when they put a slide like this up? Anybody, go. You know the line, what do they say?
They apologize.
Go ahead. What do people say when this goes up on the screen?
I know you really can't see this, but.
Then what is it doing up there? If we can't see it, why are you showing it to us, okay? So if you think you have to show this kind of nonsense, at least isolate the one bar that they have to see and make it easy for them, but please get away from this stuff. I don't care if it's financial report or whatever, unless there are other SEC issues, and I can't speak to that, but I can from a vision.
That's still tough to see.
What?
That's still tough to see.
Right, and it's still hard. Let's get away from this, right? Highlight, enlarge, etc. This used to be how I introduced myself. It's accurate and forgettable. Now what I've done is to show a picture with much more activity, where I'm working with a big, large group, and I explain I'm a professional presentation coach. We make your next one your best one. Much more memorable, easy on the eyes. This is accurate, it's just forgettable. Be careful about being accurate and forgettable. You've all seen the 7-point slide, right? Somebody puts a slide up with 7 things, and then they start talking about them one at a time. And where are your eyes? Who knows? You could be on point 2, I am on 4. You could be at 3, and I'm still talking about 1. We hate these. And the only way that I know, well, one of the best ways I know to defeat this is to use animation. And you've been seeing me use it throughout the presentation. I introduce concepts as I'm ready to talk about them. Okay, so if animation is a key tool, that's the first thing we're going to talk about. Then we'll talk about point number 2 when I'm ready to talk about it, and I'm ready for you to watch it. And animation does this, okay? And it does it in interesting ways. It can shoot out. Just don't get carried away with it, okay? Because there's a lot it does, right? But the bottom line is, when you have to give a multi-point slide, never, ever put it all up there, because you don't have control of where the audience's eyes are anymore. Animate them to bring the points out in the spoon-fed delivery that you would like to give. It will make it easier for them to remember, and it'll certainly make it easier on you. The presenter themselves, couple of things. We all know we talk too fast. It happens, you get up, got to get this out. The way to defeat that is to get your timing down and practice. Put down that phone, turn on the timer, hit start, give your presentation, see where you ended up. Work it again, work it again. That'll help you reduce your talking time. This is probably one of the great sins of the world, right? This is important stuff, and I really need you to understand it. And so this is why we're going to, and I can't stress how unauthoritative you look when you're not looking at the audience anymore. No matter how important this is, they're going, if you don't know what's on the slide, how are we supposed to, right? Now, Bill, sometimes I lose track, that's okay. I need you here, connecting with your audience. But if you don't know, it's okay to do this and then come back to the audience. Just please, none of this. So the way we do this is why this is important. And okay, you have to know your slides well enough to be here. It sounds like showmanship, Bill. It really doesn't sound like it's really substantive coaching. I'm telling you, the audience, and you've seen this, when the back goes, they shut down a little bit. You're cutting your audience off, and you can't do it. You've got to stay engaged with them. You should be the expert on what you're talking about. Sometimes when we get all trying to remember, we look down and we get very focused and we lose track of the room we're in, and we're so, okay. And practice is the big answer for that, so you can smile a little bit and be open at times. That's what people to connect to. And it's not what the software can do, by the way. It's what people can do by using the software. We just try to stay away from what things do and much more about what people do. Yeah, I mean, podium is just another presenter. If there is a podium and your presentation is there, it can turn into a place where you just come and just get locked in. And no matter what you're saying, everybody's like, oh man, right? You've got to get out from behind the podium. Even if it means stepping over here, it makes a big difference than delivering just from here. There's this black slide, big black slide. Nothing to look at, right? Which is why now when I say, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember nothing else from today, you've got nowhere else to look. I'm the only thing you can look at right now, and now I'm going to tell you an important thing. Black slide is a great way to stop the eye assault. Give them a rest, and now say something important, and now move on. Q&A. Cardinal rule. If you practice the questions ahead of time and then you practice your answers, you won't be surprised when they ask questions. But it's terrible when you're not expecting them and you haven't practiced them. When someone asks you a question, I would really appreciate, this would be a personal favor to me, if you don't tell everybody who asks a question, that's a great question. Because the next person that asks a question, obviously, if you don't say that's a great question, they're going to say, well, gee, I thought I had a pretty good question. They said that Sid had a good question. I don't know why I don't get a good question. And if we give everybody that's a great question, then there aren't no great questions anymore. So instead of this, just say, thanks for the question. Let's move on. We've all heard it. That's a great question. What a great question. Another great question. Is it really, honestly, or is it just a question? Try to avoid long answers when questions are asked. The way to avoid long questions is to practice your answers. It's amazing to me when I've watched this in presentation after presentation, how many people think giving a long answer lends itself to being smart and authoritative. It does just the opposite. If you can say it well in 15 seconds, say it, not instead of 45. It will make a huge difference. And the only way to do that is to practice it. Ask me a hard question, right? With your friends, colleagues. Work on that answer so that it's ready to go when the time comes. If you don't understand the question, that's fine. do try to avoid, I don't understand the question, because somebody's at fault when you say that. Either the question asker or you. And no, we don't want anybody to feel at fault, just simply ask them to rephrase it. Interesting, could you just rephrase that for me? I just want to make sure I got it. And sometimes they'll give you the exact same question again, and guess what else? Sometimes they shift the question. Because now that they've had a chance to actually rephrase it, they have a different or better way to ask it. So please rephrase that question for me just so I get it. Boom. You don't have to worry about this so much. This is more for conferences, but you've all seen it if you've been to a conference, that microphone in the middle of the room, and then somebody gets up and says, you know, when Apple opened with the Macintosh back in '80, and it's like, oh, geez, here we go, right? And a speaker just has to run the room and be able to get them off the stage, get them off the mic. And this is a nice touch at the end. Did I answer the question sufficiently? Yes, you did. Thank you. Now we can move on. And so I promised I'd finish up with the big secret, and here it is. I've talked to a number of you before we started, heard some of your different ideas, different programs, and I know how hard you work on your different consulting, your software, your actual physical products. I know. And I know that you think that the audience is listening to every part of that product and trying to make a decision. And while they are, you know what they're paying more attention to? They want to be sure that you're believable. Are you dependable? And a better presentation does this. If you can present it with confidence and you can present it with a clear story, they're going to feel a lot better about your product, even if it's the very same product that someone who didn't present it so well did. Because when everything else is equal, finish it for me. Right? Better communicators win. So they are always looking at you, even though your idea is important, you are even more important. There's the recap. Like I said, Trey's got the leave behind for you that will kind of summarize these, so you have this from the presentation. The best part about doing this, the very best part, is that it's still human-to-human communication. As much as technology wants to try to break a wave over us, if you can wrap your humanity around it, it's going to provide you with an uncanny advantage over relying only on technology for communication. So go make them great. Here's how you can find me on any social, as long as you spell my name, Ganon. You'll always find me. If you put 2 N's in the middle, I have no patience for you. You're going to reach every Irish Ganon that's out there, and there's lots of them. But 1 N in the middle finds you to me. With that, I'd like to open the floor for any questions, discussions on this. I wanted to go through it in a little bit of a lecture, so I got you to 1:45 anyway. Questions, thoughts, suggestions? Clark, kick us off.
So I want to phrase this question with his presentation style and somebody else's presentation style is absolutely horrible. But with that in mind, a colleague of mine presents, he's older in age, he presents estate plans. And the way he presents is back turn reading the entire time.
Right.
However, when he gets to people to sign up, people close 80% of the room. Baffles me beyond belief.
Wow.
So my question is there an age bump?
Did he earn the right to face the audience? Is that what
He
you're saying?
does that every week,
Right.
every time.
Look, wouldn't it be great if the lives were all, classic scientific truths? I'm always going to answer questions like that with, it really depends on the audience. For example, if we're having a highly technical discussion with a bunch of scientists in the room and there's a PhD scientist at the top and there's a formula, this isn't as important as this, right? Of explaining this and that. So that's different. And estate planning, if it's so, maybe it's so riveting what's on that screen, he's not nearly as important as walking them through some of these key processes.
It's not that riveting.
It's not that riveting.
He's just the same age as they are.
Yeah, but then he might be just blessed.
It's social proof, right? It's social proof, so what people like may have already done,
Right.
I go ahead and make the decision too, that's.
There's always gonna be corner cases, absolutely.
I've always just been
As a
curious.
group, I'd like you not to be this, right? They're gonna connect more with you here. Questions, go.
Your E and Qs, did I miss, or, with the closings, you did the Qs breakdown, and I think I missed the E. Do you have it?
Oh, the cues.
Yes.
So that's competitive.
Uh-huh.
That's the C. Understanding, so knowing the group, understanding the team that you have. The expertise is the E, and then the S is that sustainability. Did we build, are we selling an oak, right? Or are we selling a little sapling? Other questions? Thank you.
So I see that you have your different like social channels and stuff on here. I'm curious if you found any best practices as far as including clips or pictures on different platforms of you speaking, or have you found, there's obviously not, it's art and a science, right? But have you found that there's different catchphrases or longer form on different things? I'm just curious if you found any best practices on different types of platforms.
Sure, thank you. Within this core content, if I'm giving a 45-minute keynote, in my core content, I've got a video that I show, I have some other things that I will expand that accordion. And also on a keynote, which is sometimes different, that is very much reliant on what does that meeting planner want in the end, and then I listen very carefully for that. For a presentation for training or a product, if a video can, and you have the time, absolutely incorporate different media in there to keep the audience engaged. And yes, on my LinkedIn, I've got a little video to see a speech and all that. So yeah, I try to mix it up where I can. And I encourage you guys to do the same. Others, go ahead, Clark. One
When
more.
presenting the oak versus the sapling, because I've done a soft presentation here before in front of like a VC.
Right.
And they said you're focusing too much on the 15-year. I want to know what's the 2-year. How do you bridge that gap where and show them that this is bigger than a financial software tool. Here, we're going to take down Charles Schwab,
Right.
but also at the same time, I need to take this first step.
So there's an example, thanks. There's an example of that audience member telling you exactly what's important to them. So you don't have to guess. Yes, build an oak, there's no doubt about it, or explain the vision of an oak. But if you can't explain that the sapling is going to take root and take off, there is no oak. So yeah, know your product through the process. If you're lucky enough to have them be that specific, then they probably most investors I know want to know what's going to happen in the next 12 months with their money, not what's going to happen in the next 12 years. So be ready always with investments, be ready. These are money people. They want to know if I put 50 grand, 150 grand in, how soon does that turn into 250? Go ahead, and I didn't want to forget you too.
If they ask you a question and you really do not know the answer, what do you feel is the best response?
I know this room knows the answer, so somebody offered up.
That is a great question. I'll get back to you on that.
You just asked
No room
everybody to give
for-
the answer. Somebody else in the audience can give the
Does
answer.
anyone know the question? Does anyone know the answer?
That's an interesting question that I don't really know the answer to at this time, but I will absolutely look into it and get back to you. Thank you very much for the question. If you don't know, you don't know. And the worst thing you can do is what? Start winging it.
Thank you.
For sure. I know you were asking.
So the question and answer period, if there are times where you're hearing, so I was thinking like if you're fielding questions, it could be hard to prep because you don't know what people are going to ask. And if you anticipate what they're going to ask, shouldn't that have been in the presentation?
It's interesting, right? Because if you put too much in the presentation, it starts to spill out and they can't remember it all. I use a shortcut where I'll say, actually, we can address that in Q&A if you want to know more about this. I'll even precede the audience with that and say, We can pick this up under Q&A, but I'm respectful of making sure I get you out of here at 1:15 or whatever. So, and then I also, in addition to Q&A, the other place is in the appendix. I will have a longer version. You might be leaving for this group and say there'll be an appendix to this that talks about this in more detail. But that's a great way to keep you from having to talk about it in great length during the presentation. But invite them to ask questions about it during Q&A. And now you've even seeded a question, so you're going to expect it when someone says it.
I was just gonna say, you just made a great point on the aspect of mentioning that there's gonna be a Q&A. Because a lot of people may not know there's gonna be a Q&A. By you mentioning it, it's, oh, awesome. I can start thinking of questions I have.
Right.
And since I didn't understand what he said 5 minutes ago, I'll ask him about it. So that kind of gets you, it got me excited, thinking about, oh, I've got a Q&A at the end of this.
This is what I mean about Q&A. This is where presentations can go to die or can go to take off. Because Q&A is your proving ground, right? No more AI games anymore. People are asking you real words and you're giving them real answers. There's nothing you prepared for this, right? How much do you know? And how well can you deliver it? So that's why I really make a big case about Q&A. It's so important to get, to practice it. And when you practice those answers and you tailor them, you're gonna feel so good when you deliver it because it's just gonna come off your tongue so much easier. Got time for a couple more, or are we good?
No.
Go ahead.
I just got one thing to just to say in regards to like presentations and slides. And my background is primarily in the design realm. One big tip I would just like throw out there for anyone that's working on a presentation or slides is when you go to design your slide, just because it looks good, you think there's like something that you want to throw on there, just make sure everything that you put on your slides or the format that you use is with intention and not just because, well, this looks really nice and I want to add this extra piece of detail. Like really take the time to ask yourself, like, why am I using, say, the bullet points as you're saying? Why am I using this type of animation? As you know, animation can get a little wonky per your last example. So when you design a presentation, typically less is more, and really ask yourself, like, what am I actually doing? Why am I using it in this way? It'll go a long way.
Dylan, ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
I have a question for Dylan. So, with AI and everything, is there software that you're pairing up with for the design of new things like this? Because it's a whole world I'd love to tap into.
That's a great question. I actually don't have an answer for you.
There it is again. There it is again.
But that's a great question. It's not the right thing to say. Thank you for asking. But what I do know is that, like, I personally, a lot of the time, even with my current job, I actually lean on like Claude. If anyone uses Claude, they actually have a pretty decent automated presentation builder that can be either really good or really, really bad. So like, you have to know some of that stuff. Yeah.
If I can make a couple of more Mid-Journey
Is that
is
building?
another really good.
Yes, AI is.
Nano Banana is another really good.
So much AI.
Yeah, what did you say, something journey or
Mid-Journey.
mid-journey?
These are a couple of other AI generated. I'm not a big user of them. I play with them to understand them a little bit.
Just more like.
Still ask that question, the why. Even if AI generates it.
Yes.
How do you know, I mean, I know you have to kind of know your audience, and obviously we're a wide variety of people in your room. How do you know how far to go or how rudimentary? Does that make sense?
Sure. For those of you that I did get, did you notice before the presentation, what did I do?
You met some of us.
Kind of worked around the room a little bit and introduced myself, find out what businesses you're in. This is a small, very manageable room, but I did it, Amy, just to basically just get a reading of who these folks are and what are the things that might resonate with them or not. If you in a conference of 500, if you go present, you'd like to think you've given your presentation to the conference leader and said, this is going to be my presentation. Is this fitting? Is this what you believe the audience wants? Because you wouldn't really get a chance to present without them telling you very clearly what the expectation is. So that's That one you can rely on the person hiring you to give that presentation. Any other room, I would talk to the people beforehand if there's any way to do it. And if there's no chance to talk to the people beforehand, what about a quick poll at the very beginning of the presentation? Just so I get a sense how many people here have used Midjourney. When I say Midjourney AI developed, right? Maybe no hands go up, all right? How many people have used ChatGPT? 13 hands go up, okay. So you get a little bit of a read that way. Maybe a way to poll the room is another, does that?
Yeah, I
Does
think it's
that
hard
help?
because you've already kind of got your presentation prepared. You don't know at what level people are coming in if they don't know the basics of your topic, or you don't want to speak too high level and you don't want it to go too in depth because you don't want to lose them either way.
Right. You're never going to know the individual knowledge levels.
Right.
I mean, unless the organizer can tell you, these are all graphic designers and they all know this, right? Checking in with the audience throughout. How am I doing on this? Is this working for everybody? Is this on? And sometimes you'll get a correction. Like, we're way more interested in the finance side of this than others. You'd be like, fair enough. When you do offer that information, then then you're obligated to
Sure.
to pivot. So be prepared to pivot if that's what you have to do.
Do you find that people, sorry for the follow-up question, but do you find people are, like, I know who you are, I've met you several times, and I might feel like I could share that information with you, but if it's somebody, like a lot of times audience members, if you aren't providing the information that they were expecting in the presentation, they may not feel comfortable speaking.
It's called a whiff. I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
You know, if you think the audience was them, you were asked to present, it wasn't anything they were interested in. That's it's a sad lesson. What could you do in the future? If Trey was saying, we'd love you to come in, Trey, who's gonna be here? What kind of number count did we get? He told me before, and we're gonna about 21. All right, so I start counting. But I knew that for the most part, we're gonna have NEC members, and I already know that common bond. But if I don't know Trey at all and I'm in from out of town, I'm gonna run about 10 questions by him to make sure I can deliver something that's gonna be reasonably close to the mark. Go ahead, Steve.
One rule of thumb from a veteran like you, I actually used PowerPoint when it absolutely first came out. By that we
Right.
You, the speaker, are there to inform and perform. Slide is there to illustrate, and that's all. You do a great job. It's a picture, it's a simple thought, it's one or two things. But if there's too much on the slide, it's fighting you. They're having to compete. You're competing with your own slides for attention, and you don't want that. And one of your goals should be that nobody asks for your slideshow. Because it's illustrations. It's not all the information. If it's all the information, they don't need you. You may as well just show it. So the idea is to put as little as possible to gain interest, to help you. The slide is not the thing that's going to make the presentation.
Pretty good note to end on. Thank you very much.
All right.
Take us home, Trey.
Absolutely. Just a couple of things before we wrap up. For one really big one that I failed to mention when I was talking about membership. So we're actually doing a promotion currently for our co-work and incubate membership. So we have a 6-month and 12-month term commitment that we're introducing. With those, you either get a 5% discount or a 10% discount, but you also get a parking pass. As we know, parking has really took a turn for the worse around downtown. So we're adding a parking pass, a limited parking pass for either of those terms, completely free. So if you want to learn more about that, right? If you want to learn more about that, please come talk to me after today, especially if you're already a co-work or incubate member. There is no reason why you shouldn't want to take advantage of that. All right. Other than that, I just want to tell you all what's coming up next at the NEC. So we have well, not ours, but we have an event tonight, which may be interesting for some of you all that are looking for investors. So Nashville Investors and Innovators, December 11th, today. This is from 6 to 9, so it's a light event. Hang out, that'd be great. But please make sure you have to register prior to the event. It's like one of those high-end events, so please make sure if you are interested, you check it out, you actually register. And then our holiday happy hour. So we do these every year around the Christmas time, of course. We're gonna be doing giveaways, so have at least 4 giveaways. One will be membership, so either a free month. We'll also have Silver Belly Whiskey, if anybody's a whiskey drinker. We're gonna have things from Harding House, one of our partners. So plenty of giveaways. It's also just a nice time to relax, enjoy some free drinks, festive environment. That's gonna be December 18th from 3 to 5. You can check out these events at ec.co/events. So usually we have way more events going on, but of course as we close out the year, things slow down. Lastly, if you want to sign up for our 411 newsletter, this is going to be 4 events, 1 lesson, 1 win. Easy way to stay in the know of what's going on in the community. And what did you think about today's event? We want to hear from you, especially as we plan for 2026. So within that form, you'll see the option to add, what do you want to hear about? What do you want to learn about? What type of events do you want to see? So please give us some feedback as we continue to plan for 2026 and make the experience better for you. That's all I got. Just want to say thank you all for coming.
Thank you.